you see how much kidnappers are picking from victims.
My thing is, government should obviously recognize this. Get that, and I think you get that. The 3% for the oil producing community is too low.
So the support that is needed. And once you get the support, your energy will blossom.
This is Nigeria. You need to give people sense of belonging.
Good morning. Welcome to the Monday, July 4th, 2022 edition of Inside Nigeria. The program is brought to you on Leadership Television, and my name is Winifred Ubebo. It's my pleasure to be your anchor on today's program. Unfortunately, we don't have a public affairs analyst to analyze and discuss some of the topical issues with me in the studio, but howbeit, we are going to be reviewing some of the headline stories in the papers we have on our menu. And these papers are Nigeria's most influential newspaper, this Leadership. We have THISDAY, we have our sister publication, National Economy, and Blueprint newspaper. And of course, as usual on the program, we are flagging up with Nigeria's most influential Leadership. Leadership's headline story says CSOs, that is civil society organizations, IPAC raise concerns over electoral fault lines. CSOs, IPAC raise concerns over electoral fault lines. Decry vote buying, voter apathy, want electoral offenders prosecuted. Seek improvement in collation of election results, electronic transmission. The story is on page 4 of Leadership. I'll take the headline story once more. CSOs, IPAC raise concerns over electoral fault lines. Decry vote buying, voter apathy, want electoral offenders prosecuted. Seek improvement in collation of election results, electronic transmission. The story is on page 4 of Leadership newspaper. So for more on the stories, you can flip over to the page to read more. And still on the headline news on Leadership, we have poor infrastructure, electricity, others hampering effectiveness of e-learning. Poor infrastructure, electricity, others hampering effectiveness of e-learning. The story is a sub-leading story on Leadership. And on the right-hand corner, we have government kidnapped 2 Catholic priests in Edo. Government kidnapped 2 Catholic priests in Edo. The story is on page 21 of Leadership. And we have another on top of it. I'm not under custodial incarceration. Wambushi was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment, but nevertheless, he said he was heading to the Supreme Court to get redress. I'm not under custodial incarceration, Wambuchi, Honorable Senator Wambuchi. And then a strip above the headline story, we have article we had PDP Reconciliation Committee, but Board of Trustees of PDP. Article we had PDP Reconciliation Committee. Article is the presidential candidate of People's Democratic Party. The story is on page 7 of Leadership. Just beneath the masthead, we have a business story. Yes, conflicting. Just beneath the masthead, conflicting court rulings hamper APCON's 5 trillion naira debt recovery drive. Conflicting court rulings hamper APCON's 5 trillion naira debt recovery drive. And above Leadership masthead, there are 2 stories. Shiroro attack, we counted 48 bodies, youth leader. Shiroro attack, we counted 48 bodies, youth leader. The story is on page 6 of Leadership. And still on page 6, and on the cover of Leadership, we have a story, FCT enforces 7 p.m. closure of parks from today. FCT enforces 7 p.m. closure of parks from today. These are the stories leading on leadership this July 4, 2022. From leadership, let's move over to the next paper we have on our menu, and that is This Day. This Day newspaper, let's take the headline story. That is the leading story on the cover of This Day, July 4, 2022. Article: Killings insecurity persist because previous acts have not been punished. Article: Killings insecurity persist because previous acts have not been punished. Says authorities must go beyond issuing threats. Declares everyone is vulnerable. On PDP crisis, vows to bring party together under a formidable umbrella. Article: Killings insecurity persist because previous acts have not been punished. Says authorities must go beyond issuing threats. Declares everyone is vulnerable. On PDP crisis, vows to bring party together under a formidable umbrella. That is the leading story on This Day, this Monday. Up above the leading headline story, let's see the story just beneath the masthead. Recovered 1.8 billion naira. Recall Buratai for investigation. PDP tells Buhari. Recovered 1.8 billion naira. Recall Buratai for investigation. PDP tells Buhari. Alleges APC is haven for treasury looters. Buratai is former chief of army staff COS and ambassador to Benin Republic. Recovered 1.8 billion naira. Recall Buratai for investigation. PDP tells Buhari. PDP alleges that APC is haven for treasury looters. Also, still above the story of Buratai, we have this story just beneath the masthead. PDP BOT chairman recommends high-power delegation led by Atiku Okowa to visit Wike. The story is on page 51 of This Day. For more on these stories, you can get a copy of This Day or you log on to the website. Above the masthead, just before we leave This Day newspaper, we have Komolafe with takeover of 21 nine assets, indigenous participation in Nigeria's gas sector now 50%. Komolafe with takeover of 29 assets, indigenous participation in Nigeria's gas sector now 50%. Production by local operators hit 30%. The story is on continues on page 5 of This Day. And still on AMCON, Amekuru says AMCON has recovered 1.4 trillion naira from debtors. The story is on page 10 of This Day newspaper. This is Inside Nigeria on Leadership Television, where we review headline stories on papers. And we are moving from This Day newspaper to Blueprint. Let's see what Blueprint is saying this Monday. National Working Committee member on Tinubu's running mates. National Working Committee member on Tinubu's running mate. Competence, not religion, will guide APC's choice. Competence, not religion, will guide All Progressive Congress's choice. Muslim ticket if further raise security concern. Uriwa NDTW. Insist on federal character principle, national interest. Pick Christian from Bonu, Kebbi, Adamawa, Okechukwu. Group roots for Lalong, North Central candidates. We'll take the story once again. The leading story on Blueprint newspaper. National Working Committee member on Tinubu's running mate. Competence, not religion, will guide APC's choice. Muslim ticket will further raise security concerns, say Huriwa NDDW insist on federal character principle, national interest. P. Christian from Bonu, Kebbi, Adamawa, Okechukwu. Group roots for Lalong, North Central candidates. And still on Blueprint newspaper, let's move see what the story is all about on the left-hand corner of the cover of the paper. Investiture. With Rotary ideas, 80% Nigeria's problems are solved. Investiture. With Rotary ideals, 80% Nigeria's problems are solved. Yusuf Ali. Yusuf Ali is the managing editor, Northern Operations of the Nation newspaper. And he says clubs spent 4 billion naira on life-changing sustainable projects in 100 years. The story is on page 8 of Blueprint newspaper. And underneath the story, we have a story on FIRS. It says FIRS powers to recover unremitted tax from states, local government areas in order. FIRS's powers to recover unremitted tax from states, local governments in order. The story is on page 24 of Blueprint newspaper. And underneath this picture story on Blueprint, we have other stories. Osun 2022, INEC conducts mock accreditation today. The story is on page 7. And there are stories in bosses underneath the Blueprint newspaper. On page 25, we have story on Nigeria loses 1 billion naira revenue to crude oil theft in first quarter of 2022. Page 24, federal government's response to inflation too slow, says World Bank. Federal government's response to inflation too slow, says World Bank. And also we have story, Kwara government approves recruitment of 197 medical personnel. The Kwara governor approves recruitment of 197 medical personnel. The story is on page 30 of Blueprint. Still on news from the bosses, we have 14-year-old girl survives fall from 5-story building in Anambra. Page 25, CBN issues new risk-based cybersecurity framework to fight crime. And last in the bosses, we have a story on EU as EU inaugurates 1.3 billion pounds agricultural renewable energy projects in Nigeria. Let's go over to beneath the masthead of Blueprint. We see a picture of Okowa there. Let's see what the story is all about. Okowa, no division in PDP, article declares. Okowa, no division in PDP, article declares. Says agitation's reflection of our democratic credentials. Says agitation's reflection of our democratic credentials. The story is on page 6 of Blueprint newspaper. From Blueprint, let's move over to our sister publication, National Economy, where it's all about business. National Economy. Tougher times ahead as economists forecast higher inflation. Tougher times ahead as economists forecast higher inflation. Say rising cost of diesel, foreign exchange volatility, others will drive more people into poverty. Tougher times ahead as economists forecast higher inflation. Say rising cost of diesel, foreign exchange volatility, others will drive more people into poverty. That is the headline story on National Economy, which is all about business news. On the masthead of National Economy, take another story before we move on. Federal government's tax on carbonated drinks will boost revenue generation, says the DMO, Debt Management Office. Federal government's tax on carbonated drinks will boost revenue generation, DMO. Federal government's tax on carbonated drinks will boost revenue generation. This story flows is on the cover of National Economy above the masthead. Well, viewers, this is where we call it a day on today's Inside Nigeria. We just took you rants on what some papers are saying this Monday, July 4th, 2022. And be sure for more on the story, be sure to log into the website to read more on the stories and get more inside stories in their papers. So that is how where we call it a day on today's program. Don't forget tomorrow is another day, same time, same station. Don't forget to log in. I remain Winifred Ugbebo. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.